see, I have 12 cases that actually are going to illustrate many of the principles that all of us are talking about here. Each case will have a different aspect of evolutionary astrology that will show that. So what I wanted to get across is that when they talk about karma, there's two kinds of imprints, and I've been playing with this, and I'm not going to say I'm clear about it yet, but the possibility is, in Vedantic teaching, they talk about what's called samskara and vasana, and they're two different kinds of imprints. And actually, if you really study karma, there's 14 kinds of karma, so it's much more complex than we take in the West. But in essence, they say vasana is like the perfume left on a cloth. You know, it's a tendency, right? It's something, it's like the perfume that's left on a cloth. It's this vapor. Samskara, on the other hand, is a wound. It's a scar. It's a furrow in the psyche. It's a place where the gravity keeps returning. The Tibetans call this karmic gravity. That's what keeps pulling us back here, the samskaras. So I would just say to you that I would venture to say 90% of your karma is repetitive, because it's based on trauma. It's based upon actions or whatever impulses, desires, whatever you want to call them, that you were unable to complete in past lives. And because you died incomplete with that, it remains this kind of furrow, this gravity point in the psyche, right? And it keeps pulling you back and pulling you back. I can't get in to describe the dynamics of trauma and how that affects the psyche right now. It is in my book. If you read the introduction, there's a pretty clear description of that and how it causes these parts to fragment, and then these parts remain in their own Bardo bubbles. But what you'll see when I'm talking about these cases is, specifically in regression therapy, we work with these repetitive patterns, i.e. Pluto and the nodes, or let's just say karmic signature. So we work with these repetitive patterns. And the point is that oftentimes the part of the psyche that comes up in the past lives simply doesn't know it's over. It's in some of its own little bardo. It doesn't know that it's now in the spirit world and it can, finish that. So the second part of regression therapy that's the most critical to changing the karmic imprints is to work with the soul in the afterlife, by going through the death experience into the afterlife. And that's where part of the real therapy, besides the catharsis, that's where part of the therapeutic value of regression therapy happens. And in shamanic language, what we're doing is actual literal soul retrieval. We're retrieving that part of the soul that is stuck. The mother who was running from the invaders, dragging her child, and the invaders ran her over, and she couldn't save her child. And she's still wandering around some field somewhere, trying to save the child, still running from the invaders because she doesn't know it's over. That part of her soul is still in the bardo. In her current life, and I've seen it many times, in her current life when she goes to put her child on the school bus for the first time, what do you think's going to happen? She's going to have a meltdown, right? Because that part of her soul is still running, trying to save the child. Right? I can't protect them, I can't protect them. These are the kinds of scripts that we run. And in regression therapy, when we get to these core complexes, when we get to these scripts, what we find is, when we go through the death experience, very literally that part of the soul is still stuck there. And so when I work with that part of the soul therapeutically, I'm doing soul retrieval. And it's bringing that part out of its frozen, stuck. Uranus is also trauma, fragmentation, and freezing. That stuck part. The afterlife states, the bardo actually correlates to the archetype of Uranus and Aquarius. Because Sungyal Rinpoche, who was a Buddhist teacher, says that when consciousness, Tibetan Book of Living and Dying, when consciousness leaves the body and it's no longer rooted in the dense structure of the body, either running through the emotional or physical body, it creates thought instantaneously in the afterlife. That's the Uranus archetype. So any of these bardo states that the soul is stuck in, these trauma states, can be considered Uranian archetypal there's a book, a movie, What Dreams May Come. I use it at all my level 1 trainings when I teach regression. We watch it on one night. Robin Williams' What Dreams May Come is a Bardo movie. It's absolutely, it's the state of death that he has and the state of death of his wife and the hellish Bardo that she goes into because of the loss of their children and the suicide and this hellish state, and that he has to kind of traverse these Bardos, traverse these thought bubbles, because Bardos are basically thought, you know, it's condensed thought, and get her and rescue her. It's a great movie. Okay.